and standing firm with our industries in Canada. Canada has unprecedented access to global markets. That speaks well to the economy. Bill S6 is a small part of that and will move us forward in that, and always looking forward to create new jobs and help Canadians end their entrepreneurship and help Canadians invest.
Bravo. Bravo.
Statements by members. Déclaration de député. L'honorable député de Manicouagan.
The honourable member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, on February 26, 2018, a 14-year-old died after drinking an alcohol energy drink. The government seems not to have understood that something concrete needs to be done to avoid a recurrence. An organization has not been able to meet with the health minister, and over 100 exchanges of correspondence between the Goloso group, a lobby group, and senior officials have occurred since then. The death of a young girl should have been a warning, should have been an alarm bell. These alcoholic drinks should not be available to young people. But unfortunately, this government appears to prefer listening to the makers of this beverage rather than other public interest groups.
Jean Vanier, born to privilege, this erudite intellectual, social visionary pursued a simple idea, that we are all made in the image of God, that we have unique value, especially those among us who've been discarded by society. He lived what he believed. The origins of the worldwide large community movement were a modest home with 2 intellectually challenged adults. Now there are 147 communities around the world, 31 of which are in Canada. Tens of thousands of Canadians have spent time in a large community, sometimes called a university for the heart, among those who society have treated as discards and have learned lessons that have influenced their life paths in profound ways. Jean Vanier used his formidable gifts to follow the teachings of Jesus. It was a road less traveled, his influence both temporal and eternal. It was a life well lived. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Prince Albert.
Mr. Speaker, in front of a roaring sellout crowd at the Art Hauser Centre, Dante Hanoun scored the overtime winning goal in Game 7 last night as the Prince Albert Raiders defeated the Vancouver Giants to become the WHL League champions. Mr. Speaker, this is the first WHL title for the Raiders in 34 years. Wow. Raider goalie Ian Scott was named the WHL MVP. His playoff run included 16 wins, 5 shutouts, and a 1.96 goals against average. But now, Mr. Speaker, the focus is on Halifax and the Memorial Cup. A very big thank you to the Prince Albert Raiders and the Vancouver Giants hockey clubs for our very exciting WHL final. And on behalf of my constituents, I want the players and coaches to know that we'll be loudly cheering them on and wishing them the best of luck as they begin the Memorial Cup tournament in Halifax on Friday. Go Raiders, go!
The honourable member for Oakville North Burlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the beginning of every hockey season, in rinks across the country, Junior A hockey players lace up their skates and compete for a chance to win the RBC Cup. Over 130 teams who began the season, only 5 remain. One of those teams is my Oakville Blades. Fans of the Blades know that this year has been a special one. The season started off with a streak that saw the Blades win 18 of 19, catapulting them to first place. Backstopped by league-leading goaltender Will Barber and led on the offensive end by Spencer Kirsten, the Blades made quick work of their regional competition, sweeping the Buckland Cup and then capturing the Dudley Hewitt Cup. The Blades now find themselves in Brooks, Alberta, competing for the national championship. As the tournament heats up, there's only one thing left to say. Go Blades, go.
L'honorable.
The honourable member for Jonquière. I'd like to highlight an initiative that began more than 50 years ago and has now become a well-known agritourism hub in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. I'm talking about the farm of Michel Rivard and daughter in Saint-Ambroise, which stands out among regional farms for its original and, above all, exceptionally high-quality products. It's not the volume, it's the quality of the products that makes this farm famous. For example, blueberries are picked by hand to allow you to taste the most delicious flavors of the land. Their excellence and efforts were recently recognized with their nomination at the Gala du Mérite Économique in the tourist business category, as well as with the contribution to the Regional Tourism Supply Award at the Gala des Grands Prix Agroalimentaires. I invite all my colleagues in the House of Commons and the public to enjoy a unique experience by tasting their famous blueberry poutine. Come and explore the countryside, have a unique experience, and meet the owners, Nathalie and Pascal, who will be delighted to show you around their farm. The Honourable Member for Marc-Aurèle-Fortin. Mr. Speaker, we recently were fortunate enough to have the Minister of Defence in Laval. He came not just to see the damage caused by the floods, but also to thank the reserve soldiers of the 4th Battalion, Royal 22nd Regiment, Canadian Armed Forces. We can never say it too often. Reservists are true citizen soldiers from all walks of life, and I'd like to personally acknowledge their service and tireless efforts over the past few weeks. Thank you for contributing to the success of the efforts to limit the damage caused by these historic floods that affected several Laval families. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Calgary Signal Hill.
Here, here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I would like to acknowledge the passing of a former Member of Parliament for the riding of Calgary West, Mr. Jim HoC. Now, Mr. HoC, or Jim as he preferred to be called, was a member of this chamber from 1979 to 1993, winning, I believe, 6 elections. He served in a variety of capacities, including chair of the Standing Committee on Employment and Immigration, parliamentary secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister at the time, Don Mazankowski, and chief government whip from 1988 to 1993. As a current member for Calgary Signal Hill, which will revert to Calgary West in October, I can attest to, even after 25 years of leaving office, Mr. Speaker, Jim was recognized, well known throughout the community, was respected by the people he served.
Here, here.
He was an honest, decent, fair man, and he worked tirelessly for the constituents of Calgary West. Mr. Speaker, Jim HoC was a true gentleman, and he'll be sorely missed. Thank you.
Here, here.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, Pascal Cloutier, the Mayor of Dolbeau-Mistassini, received last week the Forest Community Champion Award of the Forest Products Association of Canada at their annual dinner in Vancouver. This award goes to a leader who supports the forestry sector and its contributions to Canada's environmental and economic priorities. He began as a millwright at the local pulp and paper plant, then became president of the local union, and then mayor and president of the Boreal Forest Alliance. Pascal has stood out for his commitment to finding solutions in the interest of the community and the region. His commitment to sustainable forestry and defending forestry communities is outstanding. It's a privilege to work on a daily basis with him in the interests of residents of Lac-Saint-Jean and all Quebecers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, our Liberal government promised to reduce poverty, and since 2015, 825,000 Canadians have been lifted out of poverty, reducing the rate by over 20%. But until we fully eradicate poverty, we appreciate and support the hard work done by grassroots organizations to support Canadians in need. One such organization is the Muslim Welfare Center, which brings local communities together to build baskets of food to be delivered to families. Project Ramadan not only feeds over 6,000 families for a month, but it also reinforces the spirit of the holy month of Ramadan, generosity, empathy, and community. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Muslim Welfare Center and the hundreds of volunteers that dedicate their time to spread goodwill among amongst Canadians. We look forward to meeting the Project Ramadan team on the Hill on June 18th and reinforcing our commitment to reducing poverty in Canada. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Promises, promises, promises. The Prime Minister was elected based on a host of empty promises. Tiny deficits, balanced budgets. Remember that? All promises made and quickly broken. And the biggest whopper of all, a promise to fight climate change by reducing greenhouse gases under the Paris Agreement. And how's that working out? While the Environment Minister claims that Canada is on track to meet its Paris targets, there's overwhelming evidence that we're going to miss those targets by a country mile. The Environment Commissioner, the Auditor General, the UN, and even David Suzuki all say that Canada will not meet its targets. Even the government's own documents show that Canada's emissions gap is growing every single year. These Liberals don't have an environment plan, they have a tax plan. And as for the promise to fight climate change, not as advertised.
Deputy.
The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, it's with confidence, passion, determination, and stick-to-itiveness that I can tell you today that the Highway 19 project has received historic support from our government. This week, we have granted almost half of the overall investment required to finally complete this long-awaited highway. $260 million is a huge contribution. In 2015, I made a commitment to you that would greatly improve the quality of life of my constituents, and today I can proudly say we've done it. We have surpassed expectations thanks to the hard work of all the key players on this file. People of Thérèse de Blainville, Laval, and the Lower Laurentians, let's celebrate. Your government is with you.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
I believe that whether a child is born of a rich family or one that struggles, they deserve every opportunity to build their life. And that is precisely what the Canada Child Benefit is accomplishing. The CCB has made significant impacts on lives across this country. In Calgary, there are over 100,000 families that are receiving this benefit. I recently spoke with Melanie. Melanie has 3 children. The Canada Child Benefit has helped her find stable housing, purchase groceries, and school supplies. The CCB is making a real difference in her life. There are many more Melanies in my constituency. The good news is, since 2015, we have cut child poverty in Alberta by 50%, but more needs to be done. That's why we're increasing the CCB this summer and helping more families find more success.
Honourable Member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
In 2015, this Prime Minister promised to run 3 small deficits. 4 years later, he is tens of billions of dollars deeper into the red ink. Promise made, promise broken. This Prime Minister promised to do politics differently, but his government has proven itself to be corrupt and unethical, with its cash for access scandal, the SNC-Lavalin scandal, and now the Mark Norman affair. Promise made, promise broken. This Prime Minister promised to restore Canada's image on the world stage. 4 years later, after embarrassing Canadians over and over again, our credibility and trade reputation are in shambles. Promise made, promise broken. Canada needs a real leader. On October 21st, Canadians will have the chance to show this Prime Minister the cost of his broken promises, because Canadians know this Prime Minister is not as advertised.
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, suicide is a sad reality in our society. Fortunately, there are people who work tirelessly to prevent and support these people and their loved ones. I'd like to highlight the tremendous dedication of the members of the Suicide Prevention Centre in Haute-Yamaska, which will be celebrating 35 years of existence this year. This organization cares about providing suicide prevention services and interventions. The center helps over 800 people in distress and does over 5,000 interventions every year. Since 2015, the suicide rate has dropped in our region thanks to the presence of this organization in our community and the whole community network. Thank you and congratulations to the team at the center. Your engagement and support is key in restoring hope to people going through hard times.
The Honourable Member for South Okanagan West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, Penticton lost a pillar of the community last Wednesday when David Campy passed away. Mr. Campy owned one of the largest construction firms in the Okanagan Valley and was a community builder in that sense for over 35 years. But it was his quiet philanthropy that really had an impact. He donated millions of dollars to help create a new hospital tower in Penticton, a beautiful facility that opened just weeks before his passing. He and his company were one of the main supporters of the Penticton Peach Festival, the largest free family community festival in Canada. But Mr. Campy really built a solid foundation for the future of his community through his generous giving to the Penticton Secondary School's Bursary and Scholarship Foundation. Last year, he donated almost $200,000 to that cause, essentially doubling the foundation's ability to support students in their quest for post-secondary education. So thank you, David Campy. Lim Limt, your legacy will always be remembered.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is currently in conflict with Ontario, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, New Brunswick, British Columbia, and Quebec over a number of files. This government is encroaching on provincial jurisdictions. They are disrespectful of our valued provincial partners. Yesterday's federal-provincial infrastructure announcement, in the absence of the Quebec government, is a perfect example. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers are tired of the bickering, the conflict, and the Liberal government's condescending attitude, and the Prime Minister's. Canadians and Quebecers deserve better. They deserve to be treated with respect. Only a Conservative government, which has always respected its partners, can give them the means to achieve their ambitions. Mr. Speaker, in 5 months, on October 21st, we will offer Canadians and Quebecers a real government that works for them.
Member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, everywhere Canadians look, things are growing, but not just spring flowers. Canada's workforce grew by a record-smashing 106,000 jobs in April, bringing the number of jobs created since we formed government to over 1 million. This didn't happen by accident. Our government put forward a plan in 2015, and we are seeing the rewards for Canadians. First, we cut taxes. Middle-class Canadians now pay less income tax than they did under Stephen Harper. And Canadian small businesses now enjoy the lowest tax rate in the G7. We chose to invest in infrastructure, in innovation, in science, in R&D, and our primary industries. The fall economic statement gave business a competitive advantage. The Canadian Child Benefit helps families raising children and distributes that money to the community. Mr. Speaker, we are on the wrong track. Commitments our government made in 2015 is bearing fruit as advertised.
Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has finally decided to answer some questions on the Mark Norman affair. So he's had plenty of time to rehearse the script and memorize the lines, and I have no doubt that he's going to talk about the specific decision to stay the charges against Mark Norman being free from political interference. But what I'd like to know is about all the evidence of other interference in this case, including his government going to great lengths to block documents from being presented to court. Why did the government go to such efforts to prevent the truth from coming out?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It's important to remember where this file started. On the eve of the 2015 election, Conservatives decided to rush through a $500 million sole-sourced project. We wanted to ensure that we did our own due diligence on this decision with the new federal cabinet. That's exactly what we did. In regards to documents, the government met all of its obligations with respect to the third-party records applications. The PMO provided all documents that responded to the subpoenas directly to the Privy Council office, who determined the relevancy and suggested redactions. This was all subject to approval.
Order. The Honourable Leader.
This government went to great lengths to block those documents from coming to court. There are many occasions where this government proved that they were going to great lengths to prevent the truth from coming out, including coaching witnesses and departmental officials using code words to avoid access to information laws. Does the Prime Minister believe that this is normal behavior for a government when a decorated Vice Admiral is fighting for his career, his reputation, and his personal freedom?
Hear, hear.
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
As everyone knows, the decision to suspend Vice Admiral Norman was taken independently by the Chief of Defence Staff. Any accusations otherwise are simply absurd. We fully respect the independence of the processes in place. But again, on the documents, Mr. Speaker, the government met all of its obligations with respect to third-party records applications. The PMO provided all documents that responded to the subpoenas directly to the Privy Council office, who determined relevancy and suggested redactions subject to approval by the judge.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, in his efforts to block the Davie shipyard contract, the Prime Minister deliberately tarnished Vice Admiral Norman's reputation. Even though 73 individuals were aware of the matter, he sent only Mark Norman's name to the RCMP. The Prime Minister also stated that there would be a trial before the decision was even made. Will the Prime Minister now make the only possible appropriate decision and finally apologize to Vice Admiral Norman? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, let's recall where this all started. Just on the eve of the 2015 elections, the Conservatives rushed through a sole source contract worth $500 million. We wanted to show diligence and transparency with our new cabinet, which is what any government should do. The decision to suspend the prosecution was made independently. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Once again, the Prime Minister is acting like the justice system is there to reward his friends and punish his enemies. They spent years trying to fight the release of those documents in court. There are serious allegations that need to be investigated about coaching witnesses, using code names to get around access to information laws. So will the Prime Minister allow the Defence Committee to investigate these serious allegations, or will he pull a page right out of the SNC Lavalin playbook and use his power to shut it down?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we understand that committees operate independently and make their own decisions about how to proceed. This is yet again another example of the Conservatives wanting to talk about anything other than the economy, anything other than our budget, anything other than what we've been doing to help create jobs for Canadians, to lift 825,000 Canadians out of poverty, bring the lowest unemployment in 40 years, keep doing the things for the middle class that the Canadians elected us to do.
Order. I'm afraid I have to remind the member for Calgary, Signal Hill not to yell throughout when someone else is speaking. We speak one at a time, and now it's the Honourable Leader of the Opposition who has the turn.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister gave $10.5 million to Omar Khadr, a convicted terrorist, so that he wouldn't have to fight him in court. But when it comes to a decorated naval officer who has put his career making Canadians safe, this Prime Minister spared no expense fighting him in court. Why the double standard?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, on this side of the House, we respect the judiciary. We respect our independent judicial process, and we will not stoop to the kinds of petty and, quite frankly, distasteful political games that the members opposite are engaged in right now. They are so desperate to not talk about the economic numbers, the job growth, the impact on Canadians.
Order. No, it's not time. There's far too much noise. Members ought to have respect for the notion that one member at a time should be speaking, the member who has the floor, the member who is recognized. The Right Honourable Prime Minister has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we see the Conservatives stuck not being able to do anything but sling mud because Canadians, 1 million of them, have new jobs because the economy is going well. We lowered unemployment to record levels. We're continuing to work for the middle class.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, throughout the country, people are counting on their government to bring forward a climate strategy that puts the priority on reconciliation, sets ambitious goals, takes concrete steps to lower emissions, and invests in clean energy. We need to have the courage to act while creating good jobs and making life more affordable for people. Will the Prime Minister adopt the NDP's plan to truly combat climate change? Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, what plan exactly are they talking about? The plan that changes on a daily basis? We have said we will protect the environment and grow the economy at the same time. But yesterday, the leader of the NDP shifted his position on the LNG. Now he's opposed to the biggest project in the history of Canada, a project that is supported by the British Columbia and by Indigenous groups. Well, this about turn is at the expense of 10,000 good jobs for people in British Columbia. But we know that we have to act and grow the economy. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Have the same emissions targets as Conservatives. Both of them love pipelines, and both of them would exempt the biggest polluters from paying.
Exactly.
Declaring climate emergency must mean more than just words. That's why our motion calls for ending fossil fuel subsidies. It calls for canceling Trans Mountain Pipeline, which puts our coastline at risk, which puts Indigenous communities into disrespect. I'm inviting the government to join in our vision for a climate change plan which leaves no worker or community behind. Will the Prime Minister support our motion?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, but the leader of the NDP can't talk about leaving no worker behind when yesterday he just decided to stand against 10,000 good jobs for British Columbians by opposing the largest private sector investment in Canada's history with LNG Canada, a project that his own colleague, the member from Skeena-Bulkley Valley, highlighted worked extraordinarily well with Indigenous communities to get the right project built in a way that is forward-thinking and responsible. Mr. Speaker, the NDP is completely inconsistent in their approach, not just on the economy, but on the environment now, too.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Order.
Once again, Liberals put their billionaire buddies inside of doing the right thing. 100%. Like the case of Mark Norman. Let's review. A multi-billion-dollar contract was in trouble, and their rich friends again needed help. So they made Mark Norman the fall guy. Liberals withheld key documents even from the prosecution, and then the Prime Minister called for charges well before they were laid. Liberals again caught wasting millions of public dollars on helping their rich friends for political gain. Will the Prime Minister now apologize to Mark Norman and to taxpayers for this travesty?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we see the NDP jumping on the Conservative bandwagon because their approach on climate change, their approach on the economy has simply fallen flat. We continue to respect the independence of the judiciary. We always will. The charges, the measures were brought forward against the Vice Admiral at the decision and at the direction of the Chief of Defence Staff. That is known by everyone, but they are stuck, so they're slinging mud too, like the Conservatives.
And hold it.
member for Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear that Liberals continue to put the priority on rich companies rather than on the interests of people. And throughout, they have dragged the reputation of a man through the mud. Once again, Liberals find themselves smack in the middle of a political interference case. And once again, it's about being reelected. Furthermore, they have wasted millions of taxpayers' dollars. People deserve transparency in the Vice Admiral Norman matter. Why do the Liberals refuse to tell the truth? Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the NDP says they want to be there for people, but they've just announced they're against a project that was going to create 10,000 jobs for people in British Columbia, a project that is supported by the NDP in British Columbia. His own colleague, the member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley, supported that project. But now the NDP has decided they're against it. And yet this is the biggest private sector investment in the history of the country. We know that investing in the economy while protecting the environment has to be done at the same time. But unfortunately, the NDP has no plan. Order.
Kirk Interlake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister ordered documents to be withheld that could have cleared Vice Admiral Mark Norman's name months ago. We're now learning that these documents may have been withheld from both the RCMP and the public prosecutor. How can the Liberals claim they didn't interfere in this process when they refuse to hand over the evidence?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I remind the honourable member that the government met all of its obligations with respect to the third-party records applications. All documents in this case were for priority individuals identified in February, Mr. Speaker, by the defence were provided to the court. Over 8,000 documents from 7 different departments, Mr. Speaker. And as the Prime Minister has just said, the decision to redact information was made by public servants in this case and overseen by the court. We met all our obligations, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
But it's still absurd that the defence is still waiting for documents from this government. The Liberals claim they did nothing wrong, yet the Defence Minister regrets the process Vice Admiral Norman went through. What does he regret? Was it that the Liberals withheld documents from the RCMP? Was it that they withheld documents from the public prosecutor? Was it that they withheld documents from Norman's defence team? When will the Prime Minister finally set the truth free, and will he testify at the National Defence Committee?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of National Defence. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Once again, as my colleague knows, committees work independently of government. We are awaiting the outcome of their deliberations. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the Vice Admiral Norman matter, the PPSC suspended the prosecution. There were no other factors taken into account, and there was no outside contact or influence on the PPSC. No political interference in laying charges or suspending the charges. And any statement to the contrary is absurd. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals deliberately held back Asterix file documents. These documents provided a complete picture to the RCMP and the prosecutor for their investigation. The Liberals knew that the defence needed those documents to defend Mark Norman, but they chose to never hand them over. Why did the Prime Minister not hand over the documents to all those who needed them to assist Admiral Norman in his defence? The Honourable Minister of Defence. Mr. Speaker, the government met all its obligations with respect to third-party record applications. All documents to priority individuals identified by the defence in February were provided to the court as required. In total, throughout the process, more than 8,000 pages were provided from various government departments. They were submitted to the court, and the decision to redact any information in those documents was made by public servants and was reviewed by the court. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, once again, they're blaming other people. The Prime Minister should be ashamed of having tarnished Vice Admiral Norman's reputation. But instead of any remorse, they want to cover up the plot against Norman by staying the charges against him. If the Prime Minister had allowed documents to be distributed as requested, the RCMP and the prosecutor would never have had to lay charges. True or false? The Prime Minister has betrayed one of our best soldiers. Will the Prime Minister allow all light to be shed and allow the Defence Committee to investigate? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, once again, committees operate independently of government. My colleague knows that. Now, I know it's difficult to understand when they were trying to control the committees under Harper's government. In terms of Vice Admiral Norman, the PPSC stated that no outside factors were taken into consideration and there was no outside influence or contact with the PPST in taking the decision to lay and stay the charges. Any other accusation is absurd. People can trust our judicial system.
For Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Justice has stood here in the House and indicated that the government handed over all the documents that they were asked for. That is patently untrue, and I have proof. The counsel for Vice Admiral Norman said the following: 6 months to get documents as we sit here today. And as we walked out of that courtroom, we still not have all of them. They said thousands of documents we have not received. She said further on, I want to make very clear, we the defense had to bring this motion to a great expense to get at those records. The people that were standing in the way of that full disclosure is obviously the government who had access.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, my department's only involvement was to provide government records to respond to a request from the defense to help support the defense from Vice Admiral Norman. The Department of Justice processed these 52 requests on behalf of 7 departments. The process of determining whether documents were relevant and whether any redactions were necessary were made and conducted by civil servants, Mr. Speaker, and then verified by the court. It was up to the court, Mr. Speaker, to make the final decision whether or not information would be redacted, not the government.
Honourable Member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, all that minister does is bring up even more questions and answers we simply do not have. Perhaps we should go back to what the counsel for Vice Admiral Norman said in her press conference again. No person in this country should ever walk into a courtroom and feel like they are fighting their elected government. There are lots of questions that need to be answered in this whole process, and I think some people who have been involved in this need to reflect on what happened and why it happened and their role in that. Mr. Speaker, what does that Minister of Justice think about his role in this cover-up?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I have full confidence in our judicial and parliamentary institutions. The process was designed to make sure, Mr. Speaker, that the defendant had every opportunity to access the information relevant to her case, his case, and to challenge any decision not to disclose part or indeed all of some document. Canadians can rest assured that this process, Mr. Speaker, worked and the justice system is intact. As Vice Admiral Norman's own counsel said, our justice system is truly unassailable.
The Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, in the last few months, this Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his former Attorney General and the President of the Treasury Board over the government's unethical conduct and interference in judicial independence. And last week, the case against Admiral Norman fell apart just as we learned that a former Star General, the MP, the Liberal MP for Orleans, was about to testify against his own government. So this is to the Prime Minister, and it's about his credibility. Doesn't he understand that if he can't hold the trust of respected Liberals, how is he going to hold the trust of the Canadian people?
The Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, the case to which the honourable member referred was handled by the Public Prosecution Service of Canada, which is independent from the government and is independent from the Department of Justice. My office, Mr. Speaker, had no role whatsoever in the handling of this prosecution. That includes the decision to lay charges, that includes the decision to stay charges, as well as the prosecution in between.
Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Well, I can see why the Prime Minister doesn't want to answer. He's becoming the political equivalent of Monty Python's Black Knight. I mean, independent. It was the Prime Minister who stated that there would be a court case against Admiral Norman, and look how that ended up. And then last week he was defending his decision to vet judges through a Liberal donor base. And the week before that, he was shrugging off a political leak on a Supreme Court nominee. And the week before that, well, I'm going to give him a pass today on SNC. Simple question to the Prime Minister. When is he going to apologize to Admiral Norman and the taxpayers of Canada? Please.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, once again, The Deputy Minister examined the policy in effect with respect to Vice Admiral Norman's legal fees being paid. We agreed with the advice and we will proceed. General Vance will be sitting down and having a discussion with Vice Admiral Norman at an appropriate time to speak about next steps. Once again, Mr. Speaker, no other factors or outside influence happened, whether it be political or any other type of interference. We will always respect our judicial process.
Athabasca.
Member for Richmond Athabasca, Mr. Speaker, how disrespectful and condescending of the Liberals for having completely ignored Quebec yesterday during a provincial federal announcement. And yet Minister Bonardel, the Minister of Transport of Quebec, had spoken with the Liberal government to attempt to work in partnership with them. What was the response of the Liberal government to Quebec's request? No. Why is this Liberal Prime Minister, this Liberal government, so intent on disregarding provincial partnerships? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, you really have to be a conservative to be against a mobility project in Montreal, a project that people have been waiting for since the 1970s. We are proud to have invested $350 million to reduce congestion in the north of Montreal, and we are proud to invest in the extension of highways. We are proud to have invested in the P9 bridge, and we are proud to invest in faster buses and electric vehicles. We will continue to invest in all communities throughout Canada. The Honourable Member for Richmond Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, all this without inviting Quebec. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Family said he was angered by the Premier of Quebec's statements, and the Prime Minister himself, imagine, accused Quebec of playing petty politics. This Prime Minister accusing the Premier of Quebec of engaging in petty politics? These kinds of comments are disrespectful, paternalistic, and condescending. These are Liberal comments. What are they waiting to work in partnership with the provinces? The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, we have no lessons to take from the Conservatives. Mr. Speaker, respect is moving forward on files that the provinces send us. In the case of Highway 19, the Government of Quebec submitted their file in September 2018. Mr. Legault's government made it a priority in October 2018, and we approved it in March 2019, and I made the announcement in May. Mr. Speaker, respect is advancing projects that the provinces send us in time for the construction season. Order.
Order. Order. Shh. The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised a, quote, collaborative relationship with provinces and territories, but 8 provinces and 3 territories oppose his No More Pipelines Bill C-69. 5 provinces are fighting his carbon tax, and the majority of Canadians and Indigenous communities all along the route support the Trans Mountain expansion and want it built, but they spent billions, delayed their decision, and haven't built an inch. So instead of fighting the provinces and pitting Canadians against each other, will the Prime Minister do what he said he would do and release a plan to approve and to build the Trans Mountain expansion?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, ever since the Federal Court of Appeal decision of August 2018, we have been working hard to fix a process that was put in place by the previous government that led to a number of projects being challenged in the court. We are engaged in a meaningful conversation, meaningful dialogue to offer accommodations to Indigenous peoples to ensure that we move forward on this project in the right way. We are scheduled to make a decision on this project as long as we are fulfilling our duty to consult with Indigenous communities by June 18th.
Right on. For Battleford's Lloydminster.
Mr. Speaker, well, I think maybe this government should actually listen to the premiers of the provinces. Saskatchewan, Alberta, Ontario, Manitoba, and New Brunswick are all fighting the Liberal carbon tax. They understand that meaningful action to safeguard the environment does not mean that life has to be unaffordable for Canadians. In fact, the carbon tax is not an environmental plan, it's a tax plan. Instead of forcing provinces to fight him in court, when will the Prime Minister start working with them?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, when will the Conservative Party listen to the science on climate change? We have a motion to debate the emerging climate emergency in Canada. Let's talk about the science. We had scientists that showed that Canada is warming at twice the global average, 3 times or more than our north. In the National Capital Region, people are still suffering on flooding. This is a flood that was supposed to happen once every 100 years. It's now happened once every 2 years. We need to take action on climate change. Why doesn't the Conservative Party join us in taking serious action on climate change and also growing in our economy? Very proud that we created 1 million jobs with Canadians.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Talking about climate change, Mr. Speaker, most people know that climate change is serious. In the brief submitted in the context of the government's youth policy, they were calling for subsidies to the oil industry to stop. When will the government recognize how urgent it is to act in the fight against climate change? We want ambitious targets to reduce GHG emissions and an end to the Trans Mountain project. When will they support the NDP's motion? Mr. Speaker, we recognize that there is a climate emergency. There's the Conservative Party, no plan for climate change, no plan for the economy. And they don't want a price on pollution. Then we have the NDP who has flip-flopped on one of the greatest investments in history. Now, we have to do both. We have to attack climate change. We have to support our economy. We can do both.
Canadians across this country are asking for urgent action to fight climate change. Action that leaves no workers or communities behind. Other countries have done it, and Canada can too. This government bought a pipeline and is subsidizing the fossil fuel industry. That's not climate action. And the Conservatives, they don't have a plan. Canadians want their government to act courageously on climate change. The NDP tabled a motion with concrete steps to address the climate emergency. So when is this government going to finally get serious about it?
The Minister of Environment.
Speaker, I'm happy to outline in great detail our plan to tackle climate change. We negotiated for a whole year with provinces and territories, Indigenous people, with input from Canadians. We're phasing out coal, we're investing in renewables, and we're ensuring a just transition for communities and workers. We're investing in energy efficiency so we can save people, businesses, schools, hospitals money. We're investing in clean solutions, innovators, entrepreneurs who are providing the solutions we desperately need. At the same time, we're making sure life is affordable and we're creating good jobs. It's unfortunately the NDP doesn't understand that the environment and the economy have to go together. They're cancelling a project supported by
the Honourable Member for St. John Rothsay.
Mr. Speaker, young people in my great riding of St. John Rothsay are worried about finding well-paying jobs after they graduate. Thanks to our government's investment in the youth employment strategy, more young people in St. John Rothsay are getting the training and skills they need to reach their full potential. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Employment please update this House what our government is doing to help young people in my riding get ahead? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much to my colleague from St. John Rothsay, and his preamble is absolutely spot on. After 10 years of Conservative rule, where we saw the highest youth unemployment records in the history of the country, after 3.5 years of Liberal rule, what we see now is the lowest records in the history of youth unemployment in this country. Because We said we would invest in innovation. We would invest in skills training. That's what we promised we would do. That's what we did, even better than advertised.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, now, we'll see if they've done what they said they would do. The Finance Minister left Bay Street and said he would manage the state's money well. And they said just a few little deficits for a few years. In 2019, no deficit. Here are the facts. 3 big deficits and $20 billion in deficit in 2019. Can the minister stand and tell Canadians, I apologize, I didn't keep my promises? Or Canadians, I apologize, I lied. I would ask the honourable member to be careful with what he says. I know this is a question that gives rise to passion, but I think that for that reason, caution should be exercised. The Honourable Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, this is a great opportunity to say just what we've been doing over the past 4 years. We have been helping Canadians across the country with the millions of jobs we've been creating, where we have the lowest unemployment rate in over 40 years. 4 years ago, we inherited a situation with unemployment, with growth that was too low, and we are improving that situation with our policies. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, all this was done while the entire planet, boosted by the American economy, was doing far better. Mr. Speaker, Canadians invest far less in Canada than we invest in the United States. Now, can the Finance Minister tell us, when he was on Bay Street, how often did he have deficits in his business? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, happily, when I was in the private sector, I made investments to grow the business. And I did so very successfully. Now here, we decided that the system before was the wrong approach, which led us to a situation with too much unemployment, too little growth. Now we're acting in a way that we have raised the growth rate, and there are far fewer unemployed. That's our approach.
When Conservatives warned that the carbon tax would be a cash grab, the Prime Minister said, no, look at the BC Liberals who brought in a revenue-neutral carbon tax where taxpayers get back as much as they pay in. But not as advertised, Mr. Speaker. In fact, it has cost $1 billion more to British Columbia taxpayers than they have gotten back, and gas prices are now $1.80 a litre. Something the Prime Minister celebrates as exactly what we want. Aren't we headed to $1.80 a litre gas prices if he's re-elected?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
We're headed to taking serious action on climate change while growing our economy. Let's look at the facts that we have had to put a price on pollution because we have provinces led by Conservative premiers who don't seem to think that climate change is a problem and don't seem to understand the economic opportunity of clean growth. But we're giving them money back. That is in the legislation. 80% of families will be better off. A family in Ontario, we got $307. What I want to know is the member opposite, did he cash his climate action incentive rebate?
Honourable Member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal check bounced, as always, as we said it would. Just like in British Columbia, where they said that taxpayers would be better off by paying higher gas prices, but it turned out they were ripped off by $1 billion in overtaxation. In that province, Gas has reached $1.80 a litre, the highest in the history of North America, which is exactly what the Prime Minister says he wants. Again, aren't we headed to $1.80 a litre for gas if this Prime Minister is re-elected?
Honourable Minister of Environment.
Good to get the facts on the table. There has been a 1 cent increase in price. The price of gas in BC is related to the price on pollution. But let's be clear what we're doing. Putting a price on pollution, we're giving the money back. We're taking serious action. But the party opposite, what are they doing? They're having secret meetings with oil lobbyists to develop their yet-to-be-seen climate plan. We need to take action on climate change. We need it. We owe it to our kids, and we have a huge economic opportunity. And I'm very proud that we're taking action, and we created 1 million jobs with Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Maskinongé. Mr. Speaker, it's not for nothing that the NDP has asked the Prime Minister to declare a climate emergency. We're still waiting for the Liberal government to act. It seems to prefer buying old pipelines. The citizens in my riding, as is the case all over Quebec, have been sorely tried by recent floods. With climate change, these catastrophes, which used to be exceptional, are becoming common. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister confirm that military personnel will remain to help residents with cleanup, especially taking away sandbags? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We can tell all Canadians affected by these floods that we're working hard to ensure people's security. And, Mr. Speaker, the government is doing all it can to help these people. We call on citizens to be very prudent, to follow the guidelines and advice of their municipalities and other interveners. The Canadian Armed Forces will support the provincial, municipal governments in helping these fellow citizens. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, we're not talking about climate change anymore. We're talking about climate emergency. With the ridiculously low targets, the purchase of a pipeline, the creation of marine protected areas where you can still explore for oil, with 41% of emissions produced by the transport sector, the announcement of a high-speed train would be an element of some response to this climate emergency. When will we have concrete action? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Well, I thank my colleague for his weekly call for a high-speed train. We are continuing to work on this very complex file. It's a very significant file. And when we have something to say, we'll let him know.
The Environment Minister claims that Canada is on track to meet the Paris targets, but we know that's not true. The evidence is overwhelming that the Liberals will miss those targets by a country mile. Canadians are worried about carbon taxes and the skyrocketing price of gas at the pump. It's become very clear that the Liberals do not have a climate plan. They have a tax plan. Will the minister now admit that her plan does absolutely nothing for the environment and is not as advertised?
Honourable Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I guess what's advertised is that the Conservatives don't have a plan for the environment. They don't have a plan for climate, for the economy. They don't understand that climate change is a serious problem and that you can do both. That you can tackle climate change and you can grow the economy. We have a plan that eliminates coal, that invests in renewables, that invests in clean technologies, that invests in energy efficiency. I could go on, but unfortunately the Conservative Party doesn't want to come together, doesn't want to join Canadians and take serious action to tackle climate change and also grow our economy. We can do both. We need to do both.
The Honourable Member for Kamloops Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, part of my riding is rural. There is no public transit. The sky-high gas prices are forcing them to make very difficult decisions about essentials. We have single moms who can't afford to fill their tanks. We have seniors who are having difficulties making ends meet. We have small businesses who have no choice but to cut jobs or cut wages. The Prime Minister says this is exactly what he wants. Can the Minister explain exactly what he wants? Why is that sky-high gas prices for rural communities?
Minister of Environment.
talked about under our climate plan that we're putting a price on pollution and giving the money back, but let's talk about all the other measures that are helping single moms in the member opposite's riding. Canada Child Benefit raised 300,000 children out of poverty. We've lowered taxes on the middle class, asking the 1% to pay a little bit more. We've created 1 million jobs so that single moms can have good jobs. We've lowered taxes on small businesses from 11 to 9%. Created 1 million jobs in Canadians. We're going to continue taking action on climate change. We're going to continue growing the economy. We're going to do it in a way that is affordable and gets people ahead.
Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Milkameen Nicholas.
Mr. Speaker, gas prices are skyrocketing throughout Canada, but in British Columbia, we have the highest prices in North America. Now, the Prime Minister has made it very clear that gas prices is exactly what he wants. Everyone knows that the approval and construction of the Trans Mountain Pipeline would help drop the price of gas. When will the Prime Minister get serious about giving Canadians a break and get the pipeline built?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member on the opposition side and his party was really serious on moving forward on the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion in the right way, they would not have voted to shut down the consultation process and kill this project and the process that we have put in place. We are working hard on this project. We're moving forward with meaningful consultation with the Indigenous communities, and we're scheduled to make a decision on this project by June 18th.
The Honourable Member for Cumberland Colchester. Order.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. Almost every issue we talk about in the Standing Committee on Health has a mental health component, whether it's post-traumatic stress or methamphetamine addiction or LGBTQ issues or Indigenous health. There's always a mental health common denominator. So can the Minister of Health tell us what she's doing in her department to help Canadians with mental health issues right across the board?
Good question. Well, Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from Cumberland Colchester for his important question and also his hard work on the Health Committee as chair. As someone whose first job was a mental health counselor, I can tell you I'm proud to be of a government that has made historic investments in the area of mental health and addiction services. $5 billion, Mr. Speaker. We're also targeting our efforts to support the mental health of young Canadians, Indigenous people, the LGBTQ community, Black Canadians, veterans, and so much more. I'm proud of these efforts, and we won't stop until every Canadian gets the help and assistance that they need when it comes to mental health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
The murderer of Tory staffer is seeking compensation from this government for her, quote, unfair treatment. Canadians will remember that the Liberals moved Tory's killer from a maximum security prison to a healing lodge until outraged Canadians forced them to reverse their decision. Will the government commit to fight her attempts at getting any taxpayer dollars and put her back behind bars where she belongs?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, it's not at all clear what the status of any alleged court proceeding might be. Indeed, the media coverage with respect to the judge's comments would indicate that he's not clear what the status is. You can be assured that the Government of Canada will very strongly defend its position.
Member for Kootenay, Columbia.
As co-founder and co-chair of the Parliamentary Cycling Caucus, I am pleased to share that today is Bike Day on the Hill. Woo-hoo! Approximately 200,000 Canadians cycle to work, which is good for their health and our environment. Mm-hmm. But sadly, on average, 75,000 Canadians are seriously injured while cycling each year, and 74 are killed. Many tragedies can be prevented with improved cycling infrastructure and side guards on heavy trucks. We must do better to keep Canadians safe. The NDP is calling for a national cycling strategy. Will the government get on board and help make Canada a cycling nation?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
That the point that is brought up by my colleague is a very important one. That is why last year we published a report which was the product of 10 provinces, 3 territories, and the federal government putting together, in fact, 57 measures that could be used to improve safety for vulnerable road users, not only cyclists but also pedestrians as well. We realize how important this is, and within federal jurisdiction we are already undertaking pilot projects to improve the visibility of large commercial trucks so that they can see the cyclists.
The member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, our government understands the importance of the Canadian minerals and mining sector to our economy and to the communities across the country. Our government believes developing Canada's natural resources in cleaner, more sustainable ways will create good middle-class jobs, enhance competitiveness, and reduce pollution as we move to a clean energy future. We have made significant investments to achieve these goals. In celebration of National Mining Week, can the Minister update this House on steps our government has taken to ensure Canada's mining sector continues on a path to prosperous, sustainable development for years to come?
Great question. Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for his question and for his hard work. The mining sector supports over 600,000 good middle-class jobs across the country. It is the second largest private sector employer of Indigenous peoples in Canada. Our government stands behind this sector. That is why we extended the mineral exploration tax credit for full 5 years and launched the Minerals and Metals Plan. Workers in the sector are helping power our clean economy. We wish them a very happy National Mining Week.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Lévis. Mr. Speaker, why does Canada need the Astérix and the Obélix? Because other ships are out of service. So this is an urgent for our Navy. The Prime Minister has tried to drag Vice Admiral Norman's name in the mud. There were all kinds of workers who lost their jobs because of his action. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, our government is determined to make sure our Navy has what it needs. Mr. Speaker, we recognize the excellent work of the workers at Davie Shipyards, and our government is going to follow the advice of people in national defense to respond to the needs of the Navy. There was a statement that they are satisfied with what we are doing. We respect the advice of the Navy, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Bécancour-Nicolet-Sorel. Mr. Speaker, the Government of Quebec builds our infrastructure, not Ottawa. The Canada-Quebec Agreement is clear on this. Infrastructure is within the jurisdiction of Quebec and municipalities. But the tramway project in Quebec has been completely blocked. It's not going forward because Ottawa prefers to bicker. Will the minister stop creating conflicts and transfer completely and unconditionally the money Quebec needs? The Honourable Minister for Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, we are working in close collaboration with Quebec. Mr. Speaker, with respect to Highway 19, this was a project tabled by the Quebec government. It is a priority for Premier Legault. And here in Ottawa, we're working on it. We are working with complete respect for provincial jurisdiction in close cooperation with our colleagues. But one thing is certain, we will continue to invest in the economy countrywide. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, instead of making these fine-sounding statements, I would like them to reread the Canada-Quebec Agreement on Infrastructure. I quote, "The role of Canada in any project is limited to its financial contribution. It will not participate in stages of implementation, and it is also stated that Canada neither decides nor administers." The minister's election announcement yesterday concerning Highway 19 is hot air. They won't construct 1 centimetre of the road. Rather than being in conflict with the Quebec government, they should get this money to them. Mr. Speaker, we're not in election mode, we're in construction mode. What the Quebec government expects from us, what people expect from us, is to look at these projects that have been submitted to us by all provincial governments and to approve them according to their merit and according to agreements. We are going forward.
Regina Louvain. Order.
Mr. Speaker, on the Mark Norman case, it's been refreshing to hear the federal NDP leader speak up for due process.
Regina Louvain has the floor. Order.
And the SNC Lavalin controversy have raised questions about interference in our justice system. They have also underscored the need for independent review of decisions made by the Director of Public Prosecutions. Will the government commit to separate the office of Attorney General from the Minister of Justice if re-elected?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question. Our government firmly believes in the institutions of government and respects them deeply, Mr. Speaker. On this particular issue, Mr. Speaker, we have asked...
Order. The honourable member for Windsor West will come to order. Order. The honourable member for Justice, for the Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, we have asked a former Minister of Justice and Attorney General for Canada, the Honourable Anne McClellan, to look into this matter and give us her recommendations. Her track record is impressive, Mr. Speaker, and she understands the various pressures that come along with this position. I look forward to working closely with her, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that our government continues to set higher standards for governance.
Order. The honourable member from Milton is rising on a point of order.
Speaker, there have been consultations amongst parties, and I believe you will find the unanimous consent for the following motion: that the House recognize Vice Admiral Mark Norman for his decades of loyal service to Canada, express regret for the personal and professional hardships he endured as a result of his failed prosecution, and apologize to him and his family for what they experienced during their legal conflict with the government.
Does the honourable member have the unanimous consent of the House to move the motion? Agreed. The House has heard the terms of the motion. It is the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion. Adopted. Orders of the day.
Government orders, government bills. The Senate resuming debate at third reading stage of Bill S6, Canada-Madagascar Tax Convention Implementation Act 2018.